Hey guys, AubreyRS here, and in today's video we're going through my top 5 tips to increase your melee DPS. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and even leave a like or comment, it really all helps me out. So tip number 1, fix your main ability bar. If you're using full manual, this doesn't really matter so much, but if you're using Revolution for your basics, all your abilities will trigger from left to right. I've got my bar set up very specifically to maximize damage by prioritizing how those abilities are triggered from left to right, with them being the highest damaging abilities on the left moving towards the right. Decimate is your highest damage attack with dual wield, followed by Dismember, but we'll talk more about Dismember later. Big point here is just to use this bar and get used to it, because I found that it works really well. Tip number 2 is learning how to cancel your channel abilities such as Assault and Destroy. Both have their different timings because of the animations, so I use audio cues for Destroy and also for Assault, but there are more reliable ways of being able to do it. So using the buff bar, when Destroy is about to reach 1 on the buff bar, you would cancel that with an ability. It's quite different for Assault though. Assault is a little more awkward. For Assault, you want to cancel it right as you see the third hit splat come out, and then you'll see almost 3 back-to-back hits then thereafter. But I would definitely recommend prioritizing cancelling channel abilities is one of the best ways of being able to drastically increase your DPS without spending any money. Tip number 3 is learning a full berserk rotation. This is key to PVMing for melee and bossing, especially either solo or at a high level. Being able to transition from using your abilities to following a set rotation in berserk will be the biggest key to achieving good DPS. The rotation will vary slightly if you have greater barge or if you don't, but in essence what you're trying to do is fit in an assault and either a destroy or a hurricane based upon the time that you have left. That'll be dictated by the situation, whether you've used greater barge and a few other variables as well. But what I'll include now is 2 variations that I use of the berserk rotation, depending on if I've got the greater barge version or not. If you don't have greater barge, you could just use the first option. But if you do have greater barge, I'd recommend that you prioritize the second version whenever you have that time out of combat where you can then use the greater barge buff. Moving on then, tip number 4 is subscribing to the channel. I'm only kidding about that. The tip number 4 is dual wield 2-hand switching, which is the next piece of the puzzle to really increase your DPS. So Decimate is dual wield's strongest basic with 188% weapon damage, and if you remember from the first tip, we have that at the very first place in our bar. A lot of people don't seem to know is that Cleave is the 2-hand equivalent of that ability, but they don't share a cooldown. So what you can do in essence then is swap between dual wield and use Decimate, and then swap to a 2-hander such as a scythe and use Cleave, and then go back to dual wield if you're doing solo bossing, and then you can use all your abilities thereon. It's just a great way of being able to keep your DPS up, because then you've got access to another 188% ability damage ability just by carrying 1 extra weapon in your inventory, and it's really great for increasing your DPS. It's also really nice in berserk where you want to optimize all your ability damage that you're using. It's just a great way overall to be able to feed in just a tiny bit of extra damage in your rotation, and you can use it every 7 seconds on cooldown with Decimate. So the best way to use it is to think of use Decimate, use Cleave. There is no other way to really think about it. There's no way of really complicating it. And the 5th and final tip for today's video is to maximize the Dismemberability. Dismember deals up to 188% weapon damage and is a bleed that lasts for 5 hits, but that's just in its base form. We can increase the damage of this ability by using a lunging switch, and lunging is an invention perk which goes up to rank 4, and what lunging does, it increases the base damage of your bleeds by 20% if they're not walked, and because Dismember doesn't really gain any advantage or a damage increase from being walked, lunging is always going to be a damage increase with this ability. So if you were to get lunging 4 and place it on an offhand weapon that you can then equip, you could then use lunging to extend Dismember's ticking damage by 80%. So sometimes you'll see people and they use dismember, and you'll see hits of 1100, 1200. That's because they're using lunging and they're getting so much more damage in those ticks. But it gets even better than that. If you have the strength cape perk, which you get with 99 strength, you can then attach that to your max cape or just wear the strength cape, and then your dismember will be extended for an extra 3 hits. So we've increased dismember's damage by 80%. We're now adding on an extra 3 hits of damage to dismember. So that's 8 hits in total. And even then, that could be increased even more. You could extend it with an extra 2 hits up to 10 if you want to spend the 300 million on a masterwork spear of annihilation. It's not something that you need to do, but it is a nice little DPS increase. But definitely think going forwards about getting a lunging weapon in your inventory, like some kind of offhand drag or rapier, maybe something like that. Put lunging on it, and then dismember will become your best ability outside of berserk, like hands down 100%. You could use that ability once with your lunging equipped, and that ability could cover easily 1200 damage, 1300 damage, no problem at all, no questions asked. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, comment down below. All support is extremely appreciated. I love doing these videos and I want to keep doing more of them as long as I can. So I'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to get the support from all you amazing people. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.